Welcome back, everybody. Today is part 2 of my 2023 rod collection, and we're going to talk about my Japanese Tenkara rods. But before I do, there's been 2 additions to my American company Tenkara rods since I did part 1, and they're both Tanuki rods. So one is the Tanuki 275, what Luong calls Killer Bee colors, and then the other is the Outbound Adventure 320 Pocket Ninja. So I have the regular Pocket Ninja and the Headwaters 240 version. I like them so much I decided to get this one as well. So look for some reviews in the near future on those 2 rods when I'm able to get out there. So let's get started talking about the Japanese Tenkara rods that I own. So the first one that I'm going to talk about is the Anglo and Company Kawasa. This is the one I used in the last week's video as well as a previous one, catching a number of different fish, brookies and cutthroats. But I really like this rod. Very short handle, as I talked about in the videos, kind of a one-position grip, finger on the blank. But the Anglo and Company rods, kind of a small production, but you know, ultra premium rods, and this one is no exception. It's only 9.8 inches long, and there's going to be a review coming out in Tenkara Angler, done by Tom Davis, so be on the lookout for that. But it's a great little rod. The thing about the Anglo and Company, I mean, the fit and finish on these things is just impeccable, and it's a great little rod. It's not too stiff. It casts well, as I talk about in the videos, but just a super fun rod. The other one that I'll talk about from Anglo and Company is the Wasabi. Now this is a 360 rod. I originally got online to buy just the Wasabi before I saw the Kawasa. But my decision to buy this was based on Teton Tenkara's, Tom Davis's review of the rod and kind of emailing back and forth with him. This is one of his favorite rods in that 360 range, and it's just super fun. Again, extremely good fit and finish, and just a superb rod. And so that one's fun. I haven't done any videos with it. I've only been fishing it a couple times. But I certainly intend to do more of that this year. So the next 3 rods, you know, really don't need much of an introduction, but they are the Oni Type 1, 2, and 3 rods. I've done a number of videos with the Type 3, so I won't belabor that point. A superb rod, obviously. And then there's the Type 1 and the Type 2. Haven't done any videos with them, and in fact I haven't even fished the Type 2. I got that not too awfully long ago, but I'm looking forward to taking all 3 out and comparing them and contrasting. Obviously the Type 1, there's been a lot of reviews. A lot of people think it's one of the best rods ever made, especially for casting a light line. So I'll be doing some videos on those in the near future. Both of these are 4-meter rods in that 14 to 15 penny range. A little different tip configuration as far as much lighter on the Type 1, thinner, and but they're very cool. The foam grip is very comfortable, multiple locations to hold them, but the real thing is just how light these feel in hand to fish with. All of the Oni rods are just so well balanced and fun to fish. You just do it all day long, and you just like you're not even fishing anything as far as the weight of the rod goes. The next family of rods that I'm going to talk about are the Nissan Air Stage Fujiru rods, and I did a review comparison sort of thing with the 330 5.5 here that I have in my hand in a previous series of videos. And like I said during those videos, I really like these Fujiru rods. The cypress, you know, Japanese cypress grip on them is very comfortable. They're a little heavier than some comparable Japanese rods for the given length, but you wouldn't know it fishing them. There's 2 flex versions that most people are aware of, the 5.5 as well as the 6.4. I have the 330 in both flexes, the 360 in both flexes, and I have the 410 just in the 6.4. And I have, well, I've been waiting for about a year now for the 5.5 in that 410 length as well. But the 5.5s are super smooth, really relaxing casting, and just a joy to fish with. The 6.4 flex is fairly stiff, or considerably stiffer at least than the 5.5s. I know the 410 is about 26 pennies, so you could use that rod for long lines. I've used it on lakes with indicators and, you know, 2 weighted nymphs. If you're using, you know, Andrew tactics with a long line and big water, the 6.4 version does very well. I know Tom Davis really likes the 360 for tactical nymphing because of the backbone of it. It really sets the hook well and can handle heavier beadhead nymphs as well. But just great family of rods all in all. They're not super expensive. They're very pretty in real life here or in person, but just very fun rods as well, and I really, really like them. So the next rod I'm going to talk about is also a Nissan Air Stage, but a very different one, and it's the Air Stage Andrew 450. So the thing about this is very long collapsed length, but it's extremely light. So the length of it is about 14 feet and 9 inches. So the rod's collapsed length is just over 40 inches, so it only has a few sections to it once you extend it, and that aspect of it makes it very smooth, great bend profile, but it's extremely lightweight. Fewer joints can reduce the weight as well, but it's only 2.9 ounces for a over 14 and a half feet. So that is extremely light. I have fished it a number of times, and it's just fun. Obviously, you don't go backpacking with it that often, and I haven't done a video with it yet. I've owned it before I started doing videos, but it's a great rod, and I'm looking forward to making some good videos with it in the near future. While I'm talking about long collapsed rods, I will discuss 2 more real briefly, but these are both the Daiwa Master Tenkara long. One is level line 36, and the other is LT 36, so level or taper line. But you would, other than the label of them, you wouldn't recognize the difference. And I haven't fished the LT 36 yet, but I really enjoyed the level line 36 so much. And in fact, Tenkara Bum feels this is one of the best Tenkara rods on the planet. And I've got no reason to argue with him on that, but I liked it so much that I decided to buy the LT 36, and I have not fished this one yet. They're both around 2.8 ounces, and they're both around 14 or so pennies. Actually, I'll take that back. I don't know what the penny rating is on the LT 36, just because I haven't seen any formal reviews and specs on it. But those are both phenomenal rods. I know Tom Davis wasn't a fan of the crackle paint on them, but it's kind of cool. It turns kind of between blue or turquoise and purplish, depending on which way the light is hitting it. But they're super fun rods to fish. Again, not backpacking rods, but they're just phenomenal rods to actually fish with. Again, very few pieces, and they're just very unique in my opinion compared to any of the other rods that I own. The next 2 rods are both with the Tenkara Bum brand. So they are the TB36 and the TB40. These were kind of afterthoughts. I bought a lot of other ones before I bought these, but I'm glad I did. I had read so much about them, and just kind of my curiosity got the best of me. But they are extremely light rods, and as Chris Stewart talks about, kind of designed by, you know, for the American angler, so a little bit stiffer handling bead heads, but extremely light. I know the 10 Bum 36 is 2.2 ounces, and I think the 40 is around 2.6 ounces. So very light. They're just a joy to fish with, really. I've done a video with these 2, catching some very nice trout. They're both around 18 and a half pennies, and just really fun. If you like foam handles especially, they're very comfortable to fish with. So the next one I'm going to talk about is the Nissan ZeroSum, and this is the 400 in the 7.3 flex. And it is about a 20 penny rod. I've used it quite a bit actually, although I've only made 1 or 2 videos on it early on. I've had it for a while, and I really like the ZeroSum rods. They're beautiful and just very high quality rods. You kind of know it from, you know, first wiggle. But these are really cool looking as well as very fun to fish. But high quality rods, I kind of, you know, I keep going back and forth about getting shorter versions, and the 6.4 version of the 7.3 that I have here, I'd like to get a 6.4 just to see how the other half lives. The next 2 rods I'm going to talk about were some that I bought quite a while ago, long before I started making videos, but they were my first venture into big fish rods. The first one of the 2 rods that I'll talk about here are the Nissan Oni 450. Now this is a little bit softer than you might think of for a big fish rod. It's only about 20 pennies, 3.4 ounces. So you're getting it, you know, large cork handle, but it's really nice to cast. Since it isn't super stiff, it really kind of is enjoyable, slow motion, and just casts a bigger line, longer line very well. And it's just, I've really enjoyed it. And this was kind of, for a long time, this was my workhorse rod. I've used it a lot. I know a lot of people enjoy the 395 version of this as well. I don't have it, but this particular rod is, you know, has grown on me, and I've used it probably as much or more than many of the rods, or most of the rods that I fish with. A lot of the water I'm in, I have room for a rod that's, you know, 450 centimeters. And it does have, you know, the capability of catching good sized fish that I do run into occasionally there. So that's been a great rod for me. And the other one is the Daiwa Expert Tenkara LT H44, so hard 44. So it's a bit stiffer, whereas the Oni Andrew is 20 pennies. This is 35 pennies. So considerably stiffer. It feels beefier, and obviously requires a little bit more effort to cast because of that stiffness. So Chris Stewart of Tenkara Bum calls this the best big fish Tenkara rod, and I can't argue with him on that. I really feel confident and comfortable fishing this rod, even though it doesn't have a tippet rating, whereas the Oni Andrew tippet rating is 3x. This doesn't really have one, but I'm comfortable fishing it with 4x. But I can tell you, when I do latch into nice fish, that extra stiffness with this rod just makes you feel like you have a lot more control. Whereas the Oni Andrew with that 20 pennies, that thing will bend quite a bit, and I just kind of have to be more patient. Whereas this one, I feel like I have a lot more control over the fish. And if I know I'm getting into big fish, this is the rod I will take between the 2 for sure. The next 2 rods I'm going to talk about are the Tenru rods. Now they're both 390 centimeter rods, but obviously very different. Excellent backpacking rod for the TA version, and it's actually the same length, you can see, or just maybe 1 cap length longer than the Pocket Ninja, so very, very compact. Now the longer one is softer than the short sectioned rod. It's 14 pennies, just ultra smooth, whereas this one's a bit stiffer. I've seen a couple different ratings as far as penny ratings on it, anywhere from that 17 to 20. And it feels like it feels it. You can tell the difference between the 2, but the portability of this shorter one is just you know, exceptional. Chris Stewart kind of describes this rod as the perfect rod for the fisherman that backpacks, as opposed to a backpacker that wants to fish occasionally. But they are both exceptional rods. They have a touch more glass in them than some of the other Japanese rods. I want to say it's 83 carbon, 17 glass, but they're very smooth. In the Discover Tenkara video series, Go Ishi talks about Tenru, and they're known for some of their other rods like spinning rods, but that many people feel that Tenru makes the best blanks. And I can tell you, when you collapse and extend these rods and look at them under a microscope, they are exceptional fit and finish on them. So I really like these rods. The one thing, I guess, if I were to wish for anything to be changed on them, is the cylindrical grip. I like a little bit more contour to them. They're not bad. They just, I find a little bit of contour a little bit more comfortable. Although you can obviously use an infinite number of positions with these, as opposed to if they're just a hump here and a hump at the bottom. But in general, I like to have, you know, a grip with a little bit of contour, and I can find the spot that's most comfortable for me. But all in all, these are exceptional rods. And I did see on Facebook, and I've done a little bit of research, they are coming out with another one, and it's going to be similar design to this. It's actually going to be a bit shorter. The handle's not so long, and it does have some contour to it. And it's a smaller rod, 2.8, 3.0, and 3.2. And kind of picks up where this one leaves off at 3.3, 3.6, and 3.9. So that'll be interesting. It's not available yet, but I'll be interested in seeing it and get my hands on one and comparing them. But I really like these rods, both fit and finish as well as fishability. The full flex of this longer one suits me more than the shorter one, but the shorter one goes backpacking with me. So those are the Tenru rods. The last three rods that I'm going to talk about kind of fall in that big fish category, ultra premium rods as well. And they are the family of Gamakatsu multiflex rods. So I've read a lot from Adam Trahan of Tenkara Fisher about his three rods, as well as Tom Davis talking about his Gamakatsu rods. And so I just figured I had to have them. The first one I bought was actually the longer one, the 5.0. Now these are multi-position rods. The two shorter ones are 3-position, and the bigger one is 2-position rod. But this, for being such a long rod, is pretty light. I want to say it's 3.8 ounces if I remember. But very long handle, so you can use two hands when fighting a big fish, which comes in handy. But it is actually, unlike a lot of rods, it's actually just a touch softer at the longest length. A lot of rods, multi-position ones, and there's not a lot that I have of the Japanese Tenkara rods that are multi-position, but all the Gamakatsu ones are. But it's around 26 pennies at the shorter length, and then 23 pennies at the longer length. So similar to the Oni Andrew, it will bend. This one's actually rated for 2X. And I am very confident that it can handle big fish. I've seen some of them online, you know, of catching sea-run brown trout with these Gamakatsu rods. And so I'm very confident that they can handle very large fish. The other two rods, so the longest one is kind of the softest of the three, and then the middle one is in between, and the shortest one is the stiffest version. So that one is the 400, so the three positions are 3, 3.5, and 4. And then this one is 3.5, 4, and 4.5. But the shorter one is much stiffer than this one and the 5.0, which is great for tactical nymphing, handling big fish or heavier lines. And then this one's kind of a sweet spot in the middle of the two. I really like the lengths on this one specifically, 3.5, 4, and 4.5. So very versatile. And again, both of them long grips. And these are just really neat rods, just very high quality and very capable rods to handle big fish. Now these two aren't rated for the same 2X, but I want to say 3X at least on the 4.5, and I don't remember on the 4 specifically. So with that being said, those are the Japanese Tenkara rods that I have. In part 3, I'm going to talk about all the Keiru and Seiru rods that I have. But if you have any questions on these rods, or if you have any comments, you've used them, like them, dislike them, feel free to put that in the comments below. But we'll talk to you in part 3 coming soon.